Thanksgiving week. It's Anwar and Jason. Your favorite time of the week for recruiting updates. Jason, how are you doing on this Tuesday? You getting Thanksgiving preparations going?
You know, I'm lucky. My parents live nearby, Anwar. They do all the cooking and everything else. I just show up and eat and drink my dad's beer, so that's good. That's why I love Thanksgiving. Yeah, dude, we're a week and 1 day from National Signing Day, and I know it has been and it's going to be hectic, but I don't know, man. I'm kind of at peace here. Nothing's gone too crazy, so we're just trying to make it to the finish line at this point.
Yesterday was a day I missed Ant in the media because that would have been a total Thanksgiving question that Sark would have received that Ant would have gave us, and we didn't get it, and I was really disappointed.
Like biggest game in a long time for Texas, and Ant would ask him like, "What's your favorite side to go along with your turkey?" Or
exactly,
dark meat or white meat guy? Sorry, yes.
Exactly. All right, so let's talk about Thanksgiving festivities with Michael Fasusi. I saw him at the game on this past Saturday. You've had a chance to talk to him. I'm kind of curious as we stay on Michael Fasusi flip watch, because it's getting that time of year where Texas usually flips some guys. It just flipped a guy, obviously, just last week. Where do we stand with Fasusi, Jason, and also with my horrible internet connection?
Well, Fasusi, man, it's tough to read on where the information is kind of all over the place, right? I was actually talking to someone about this last night. There is a sense of confidence in Austin from what I'm gathering. Okay. It's more confidence inside the program than what I have in Texas's chances with Michael Fasusi. I did see Mike before the game on Saturday. I was down on campus, chatted with him for a minute there. He's kind of like, "Hey man, I'm just having some fun." It's the last couple of weeks of the process. And then I talked to him on the phone on Sunday, and we had a really good conversation. And he did really enjoy the experience. He enjoyed the game. He said, "Man, I love seeing the Texas coaches, the fans, the stadium, the atmosphere." He talked to Kyle Flood, and Kyle Flood's message, if I can pull this up, sorry. He said, I'm quoting Kyle Flood. He said, "I deserve Texas. Like Mike Fasusi, you deserve Texas." And he said, he said he trusts his ability, Coach Flood trusts his ability to maximize Fasusi's talents. What they've done with the program. He trusts Texas to be the right school to develop him, which is a big deal for Michael Fasusi. Development is kind of one of the big things he's looking for. But he did tell me, Almar, and I haven't put this out specifically on Orange Bloods. Like, I know it's Thanksgiving week and I'm an idiot and glutton for punishment, but I'm going to do like a kind of a mini war room, if you will, of my own, probably on Wednesday, because I got a couple of recruiting notes that I feel like I need to pump out there. So I talked to Fasusi and I said, "Well, he goes, man, I said, Mike, I said, I had people asking me about you on Saturday before the game. And I said, you tell me if I'm wrong. Okay. But I said, I told these people, I don't think Michael Fasusi knows where he's going to wind up. And he goes, dude, it's so funny you said that. He goes, after the Texas game, he goes, I'm torn. And I just was like praying. I was like, God, I need a sign. I need a sign. Well, then he proceeds to tell me on the way home, it was him and his dad and his sister. His mom didn't come. His South End Zone Queen points out in the chat, she did not come. So Fasusi, his dad, and his sister are riding home in the car. And he's watching the Oklahoma game on his phone. He goes, yeah, we're cheering for Oklahoma, this, that, and the other, and they're beating up on Alabama. And I said to Mike, I go, well, I said, hey, I said, sounds like you're still a little torn. I said, you got 10 days to get some clarity. You're praying on this, whatever. He goes, or get your sign. He goes, no, I got my sign. That Oklahoma game was the sign. So he's basically was telling me like, hey, man, I'm probably going to wind up sticking with Oklahoma. Now, that was on Sunday, Almar. Today's Tuesday. We still have 8 more days before signing day. He's going to visit College Station this weekend. Texas isn't going away. So there's some moving parts in this. Like I said, there is some confidence in Austin. Based on my conversation with Mike, I think it's Oklahoma looks like they might be able to hold on to him.
That's the thing I wanted. It's so crazy. I'm so glad you said that. Not for an update standpoint, but just actually was because that was my next question for you was for a guy like Fasusi, who it could probably be easy to lose a little faith and doubt. But your program kind of sucks. Like, let's just be honest with you. The program kind of sucked. They didn't look like they was going to be bowl eligible. And you thought to yourself, they're going to be 5-7. It's nothing good is going to happen. But then it's like the miracle from the sky happens. And they beat Alabama. And it feels like that's the thing that can go back to Mike and say, like, hey, everything we told you, look at what happened. And now you come here and everything will be better. I felt like the Oklahoma win against Alabama was kind of almost the thing that he needed to say, you know what, I'm good with OU. What do you think?
I think there is some truth to that. Now, will it hold true over the next 8 days? We'll see. But and he liked the fact that they won, not just won the game, they won it by being aggressive and running the ball. Jackson Arnold ran the ball a ton. He didn't throw the ball a bunch. And Fasusi even said to me, he said, yeah, man, I can't wait to block for that guy, the way he was running the ball like that, and just pin my ears back. So, kind of the language he was using was like, oh, okay, he's pretty locked in with Oklahoma. Normally, I would say one game doesn't make the biggest difference. Guys usually are able to look past that and look at the bigger picture. But I do feel like, and I can't remember if I've said it on your show, Anwar, but I feel like Fasusi's heart, I feel like he really likes Oklahoma. Maybe he knows that Texas or even A&M is a better business decision, but he's looking for a reason to stay with Oklahoma because he really likes it up there, likes those coaches up there. So maybe that one game was kind of his reason, and especially after he had literally just prayed, like, I need a sign. That happened on Saturday night. Now, someone's in the chat, if I could put this up.
Go for it.
Says, the next time will come this weekend, OU will throw up on themselves. Oklahoma's at LSU this weekend. Well, that's possible, Nate, that they could throw up on themselves. But unfortunately for Texas and Texas A&M, if he's at that A&M game as expected, that LSU game kicks about the same time. The Oklahoma LSU. So unless he's sitting in the stands in College Station watching it on his phone, he won't be able to actually watch that game. Whereas this game that the game against Alabama, he literally sat there and watched it on his phone. He was telling me how him and his dad and his sister's in the back seat, and they're all cheering for Oklahoma. And, man, look how physical they are, and look how aggressive they're being. So it was pretty strong language in favor of Oklahoma. Now, all that being said, Anwar, Mike's a pretty impressionable young man, okay? So this thing can still change in a hurry. So we'll see what happens over the next 8 days.
The fact that he was it's like being in a like a relationship, but you're still keeping tabs on your ex, like, or current person, like that doesn't bode well for me. Like I heard everything you said, but if he's at Texas to watch Texas and Kentucky, and he's just keeping an eye on Oklahoma, and he's happy, yeah, that sounds like to me one of these things, Jason, where the staff will always let you go on visits just so you can clear your head, so that you can kind of go ahead and make your own decision. That's where that stands. That's where it looks. That doesn't look good. That's a horrible update, actually, Jason.
Well, the Texas staff is really good about, hey, take your visits, make sure you have a clear head. This is where you want to go. Venables has a no visit policy. He literally said in his press conference last week, someone asked, and they didn't mention Fasusi specifically because he can't speak on Fasusi, but they said something about committed guys taking visits. And he's like, if you're taking visits, you're not committed. So Venables has a no visit policy. But like I said, what's he going to do? Tell Michael Fasusi, hey, we're cutting you off if you go visit Texas? No, you can't do that. But I don't think he was too happy about Fasusi taking that visit last weekend or the one this upcoming weekend. But just the wording and just kind of his actions, Anwar. Again, he's impressionable. Texas is going to keep chipping away there. Maybe they can swing this thing at the last minute. But to me, it feels like Oklahoma is trending to hold on to him.
Yeah, you could have a no visit, tell a 5-star visit. So there's that. How do you feel about the class? of the O-line class?
O-line class. Good, but I mean, anytime you're not getting a guy like Michael Fasusi, a guy like Lamont Rogers, it's not quite what it could have been. There was three really good, really, really good offensive linemen in the state this year, and Texas isn't going to get any of those three top guys, if you include Ty Haywood, who they never really recruited, weirdly. But, I like the class. I like John Mills. I think Nick Brooks, his weight's a little, I won't say frightening, but he's going to have to, keep his weight in check like Cam Williams has been able to do. But I think it's a good class, Almar, but it's not an elite offensive line class. Anytime you don't get a guy like Michael Fasusi, it's kind of like, well, receiver is a little different. But listen, okay, linebacker, you miss on Riley Pettichon. Okay, well, you might get pretty good linebackers, but you're missing on a 5-star guy from the state of Texas. Those type come around once every 4 or 5 years, and you didn't get them. Well, then it's hard to give you an A, right? So I definitely give this offensive line group a passing grade, but if they can't close on Fasusi, it's a good class, but certainly not a great class.
Is this the year, Jason, where Texas finally has to go in the transfer portal to look for offensive linemen? Is this can they say we're good with the guys we develop, or do they have to go to the portal and say, you know what, we've got to bring in some guys?
That's a good question. I don't have the depth chart in front of me. We know Trevor Goose, you're going to lose both tackles, okay? That's the big thing. Obviously, you're losing your center. Who knows? You might lose a guard or two, right? So they might have to on more. Unless Kyle Flood just thinks, hey, the young guys we have that haven't played a lot, they're ready. People just don't know about them, but they're ready. I don't know. To me, if you're going to have to replace both tackles, right, you got Gooseby. And then who would be your other tackle? Like, if you assume Gooseby goes to the left.
You got Brandon
Baker.
Yeah.
Andre Kojo. I would think they probably will go into the portal for at least one guy, just because you need some veteran kind of proven commodity. But I don't know the answer to that for sure. It's a really good question. The portal opens up next week, so we'll start getting some answers to that pretty soon.
Jason, I'm kind of curious about something. I'm going to look up something here because you said something that I thought was a little interesting. Of the 5 stars in the state of Texas, how many of them has Texas landed
this year?
Yes. Lance, is there any? Oh, Jonah Williams, is he the main one?
Yeah, Jonah would be the only one in state. Yeah.
Okay, so it'd be Jonah and everybody else. They didn't necessarily need a Keelan Russell. DeCorian Moore, I think he recently shut down his commitment this past week. Not to shut down his commitment, shut down recruiting this past week. So he's done. Devin Sanchez, Fasusi, Williams, and Pettichon. Is that, if you get one out of that, what is that, 6 or so? Is that good? Or would you have liked to have seen that number a little higher?
And let's also remember Lance Jackson he's either one spot away from being a 5-star, or he's at a position where if he holds his spot, he'll be a 5-star. So, so we're kind of splitting hairs there a little bit. I think they could have done better, if I'm being honest. 1 out of 6 isn't bad, because 5 stars are not easy to land, but they were really in on Riley Pettichon, really in on Fasusi, really in on DeCorian Moore a couple times. Devin Sanchez, not so much. Keelan Russell, they could have been in on him, but they chose not to offer him. So, this, I hate to sit here and sound like I'm crapping on this class and being negative, because it's going to be a really good class. They still may have a couple of tricks up their sleeves where this gets to be a top 3 type class, right? So this is a really good recruiting class. But if you're purely asking me about the 5-star in-state guys, yeah, they could have done better. You think, this class is really good right now, but it would have been to the moon had they gotten Riley Pettichon, Mike Fasusi, DeCorian Moore. So there's a little meat left on the bone in terms of in-state talent for sure.
Myron Charles, you had an interesting note on him. What's the latest as far as Charles is concerned? Oh, and we'll get to the super chat in a second. So,
yeah, sorry.
actually, let's do super chat. Let's do super chat first.
Okay.
And then we'll do Myron Charles. He goes, "Nah, it's over. You don't have Mama. You don't have the recruit unless you're Landon Collins' mom when he didn't choose LSU."
On live television. Yeah, that was great.
I love her. It happened twice with her, by the way, with both of her kids. That has to be the death blow, though, that Mama wasn't here.
It's not good. He didn't say that, but we've been reporting for a few weeks that like Mom was not fully on board with Texas. She preferred him to stay at Oklahoma. Who knows? Maybe there's a reason she didn't come in. I didn't even ask him. He just told me it was his dad and his sister. He did say his dad and sister really enjoyed the experience, enjoyed the visit, enjoyed the game. He's like, yeah, my sister went and saw a movie too. And I was like, wait, she didn't go to the game? He goes, no, she went to she went and saw a movie and the game. I don't know how that works, but because they drove in, I think, that morning and drove back that night. But he did say his dad and sister enjoyed the visit. But yeah, I tend to agree with Barb's. If unless maybe Mom wasn't feeling well, maybe she had to work, maybe she had something come. I don't know what the explanation is, but it sure would have felt better about Texas and their chances had Mom come in, because we've been hearing that she's maybe more in favor of him at Oklahoma. So her not being there on Saturday doesn't seem like a positive development for sure.
That's kind of like, you guys can go. I'm going to do some other stuff because I'm not interested. That's what it sounds like to me. Like, you guys can do whatever you want to do this weekend. If that's what you guys want to do, that's fine. But I have no interest. It's kind of like if your wife says, hey, I'm going to go shopping. You're like, go ahead, honey. You can go to the Round Round outlet. I'm just going to stay home. And you can let me know how it was. That's what it sounds like to me, Jason.
But give me your credit card before you leave.
By the way, this guy goes, hey, do you ever have any good news? This class sounds worse every time you give an update. From
Barb's, I can just shooting you straight, brother. Hey, you paid $5. You want the straight answer. So, we'll talk about Myron Charles here. I don't know if that's even good news either, but it's not bad news.
Go ahead and see if you can top yourself.
Yeah, so I did talk to Myron Charles, the Texas D-line commitment, on Sunday as well. Myron's interesting because 2 weekends ago he visited Florida, and Florida's making a hard push at him and a bunch of other guys. Florida is making this late push on a bunch of guys. I think they just flipped somebody maybe this morning from Florida State or last night. I saw the notification, but they're pushing for Myron Charles. Well, he was supposed to go back to Florida last week for the second consecutive weekend. Well, he ends up changing that, and he ends up coming to Austin. And he flew in. He had a game Friday night, playoff game. So he flew in Saturday morning to Austin. He and I were texting. He's, yeah, I made it in, blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, I'll hit you back tomorrow. So I called him on Sunday, and he was literally at the airport. Tons of background noise. I could hardly hear him. So we didn't have a great conversation and a great interview. He was fixing to board a plane, I guess. But, he said, hey, it was a good visit. It was a fun visit, was the term he used. I said, well, what does this do now for your commitment? You had Florida still pushing, obviously Texas. You came to Texas. Does this clarify things? And he goes, man, I don't know. And I said, okay, well, you have a week and a half.
Right.
How do you get clarity? And he goes, you know what? I really don't know on that either. So the fact that he chose to come to Texas over going to Florida, going to Gainesville, I think that's a really good sign for Texas, obviously. Listen, it's not easy. He had a game Friday night. He has to purchase a plane ticket. He has to fly to Austin Saturday morning and then fly back Sunday, get a hotel. There's a lot that went into that trip. But Florida's not going away. I think he's going to stick in this class, but Florida's not going away. And he's still not fully locked in with Texas coming out of last weekend. So we'll certainly be keeping an eye on that one this week. And Florida plays in Tallahassee this week, by the way, so it's not like he could go see Florida again unless it's an unofficial visit midweek or something.
But Jason, is it almost like Oklahoma when the team kind of rises from the ashes? You kind of gave up on Florida because they looked so horrible for so many weeks. Then they come out with a big win. It's almost like, and the coach, got the quote unquote, backing from the AD. It's kind of easier, I think, for Florida to come back around and say to him, like, hey, look at us. We're good now. Like,
Mhm.
don't worry about this. The same way they say to him or Javon Hilson or anything like that. You're like, hey, the storm is over.
Well, I think you're right. And I mean, it doesn't hurt that Florida's playing well with DJ Lagway. They can say, hey, if we had DJ Lagway the whole time and he doesn't get injured, this is a different season for us. Maybe it would be. But and it also doesn't hurt that Florida's throwing around a boatload of money. I mean, let's be honest. That's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking this money that they were going to buy out Billy Napier with, and they're using it for NIL purposes for these kids. So, Myron Charles could come down to NIL. I mean, honestly, if Florida offers him a much bigger number than what Texas has, then he might wind up at Florida. But, how badly does Florida want him? Is he a top priority for them versus some of these other guys they're working on? We'll see. But, Florida, like you said, they kind of were on death's doorstep, and now that program's kind of got a breath of life into it. But I do think NIL is playing a huge factor in their resurgence as well.
Javon Hilson, anything new with him?
He visited Michigan last week, which was unexpected. He was supposed to be at Florida last weekend, and then he pops up at Michigan on an official visit. Yeah, man, I talked to someone about him on Sunday, Anwar, and they were asking me, like, hey, what do you know on Hilson? I'm like, not a lot. Like, he's not talking to anybody really anymore. But Michigan just offered him. He went up there to Michigan. Michigan suddenly is recruiting pretty well, and they're throwing around some NIL dollars here of late. So, I'll be honest, dude, I have a Javon Hilson commitment story written up 2 months ago or whatever it was when he decommitted. I feel like I might wind up trashing that thing because I know he loves Texas, but it almost feels like he's looking for a reason to go somewhere else. He's going to Syracuse and places like this. I mean, now Michigan's involved, obviously Florida. He just can't quite bring himself over the hump to just, I think we lost Almar, to be in love with Texas. There he is. Almar's back. So, but he's going to decide on the 4th. He's not deciding until National Signing Day on December 4th. So, maybe he's just doing all these visits to have a little fun, and then he winds up committing to Texas. But I don't have a great read on Hilson. I mean, he keeps saying, hey, all these schools are in play, and then he'll cut it down to 4, and then Michigan comes in, and now they're in play. Florida wasn't in play, then they suddenly are. So just a lot of moving parts with Javon Hilson that makes it kind of tough to pin down what he's going to do. But the longer it goes on, and I know he has a December 4th commitment date, so it's not like we expected him to commit this week or last week, but the more visits he takes, just feels like it's just kind of muddying the waters a little bit, and maybe it's not going to be Texas. Almar, you frozen on me there, dude? I can see you, but I think Almar's frozen. I'm just I'll transition. I see Almar. Joseph Mbachu, Texas got a commitment from Mbachu on Saturday. So this happened before the game on Saturday, actually. I talked to Joseph Mbachu last night, and Almar's having internet problems, but I'm going to just talk my way through it here for a little bit. But Joseph Mbachu.
I mean, it's a nice background, but it's shit.
Yeah, so you're not totally frozen, but Mbachu, he and I talked last night. He came in for the game on Saturday, and he committed to Sark on the field before the game, okay? And I said, well, when did you make up your mind? Because he was taking all these other visits and stuff, and he was supposed to go to Tennessee, I think it was last weekend. He said, you know what? Actually, he goes, I made up my mind before I took my Texas official visit. And that was back in October, I'm looking. He took an unofficial visit to Texas September 14th. And he said after that, he pretty much knew that Texas is where he wanted to be. When he came in for his official visit on October 18th, he said his mind was pretty much made up, which looking back at it kind of makes sense because at that time he told me he was still committed to Florida when he took that Texas visit. And he said, hey, Texas and Florida are my top two. Well, the next day he ends up decommitting from Florida. Well, in hindsight, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So, but yeah, his mind's been made up for more than a month, and he actually came in and made the announcement on Saturday while in Austin. So I like this pickup, Almar. He's a Rivals 250 guy, 6'6", 285. He's only been playing football for 6 months. So, I mean, this dude is just raw. He is untapped potential. He's always been a basketball guy. and he just decided to give football a try. So he and I were talking about that. Like, dude, think about how that move to football really changed your life. Now you're getting to go to the University of Texas on a scholarship. I mean, who knows what after that if you play in the NFL. So good for Joseph Mbachu. I've only talked to him 2 or 3 times, but really quality young man. He's always pleasant to talk to. Seems to have his head on pretty straight. So nice pickup for Texas. He's a bit raw. Like I said, he's only been playing for 6 months, and he knows it. He goes, there's certain things I got to learn, and I'm still learning. But, I mean, that guy's got a lot of potential as he continues to develop.
Hey, Jason, last thing. I'll ask you one more thing. We'll get out of here because my internet sucks. Airbnb is nice, but the internet here is trash. Texas versus Texas A&M. What are you thinking?
I'm going to work on my matchups today. But in my 3-2-1 today, I said, hey, let me pull this up so I can get this. So back in September, let me see. Early September, I predicted Texas would beat Oklahoma and A&M by double digits. I then repeated that prediction in late October after Texas beat Oklahoma. I said, okay, so I'm sticking to my prediction that Texas is going to beat A&M by double digits. I said I'm a little less confident maybe than I was previously because the Quinn Ewers injury. Honestly, just the way the Texas offense is playing. I get it. It's a road game, College Station. Rivalry game, those usually play close, but I just don't think A&M's that good, Anwar. I just don't. And they lost to Auburn. Auburn's not a good football team. The fact that A&M is in a position to possibly play for the SEC championship is just staggering to me. They're not in the same class as Oregon. They're not in the same class as Texas. They played, or I'm saying Oregon, Alabama. They're not in the same class as Georgia or Texas, I don't think. If they played Texas and Georgia 10 times each on a neutral field, I think A&M maybe wins one. But is that one going to be this weekend in Kyle Field where it gets into the championship?
Great question.
Maybe, but I think it'll be disappointing for most fans, unless you're an A&M fan, because most fans realize that's not a championship caliber for football team. I just don't think it is. I think Texas is a better team. I know it's on the road. I know it's going to be a hostile environment, but I think Texas does enough to get the job done.
All right, Jason. So listen, no recruiting show at noon. We'll come back and do no recruiting show
no modcast
tomorrow. No modcast at 10 a.m. We will do the modcast at noon instead today. So we're moving that back just a couple of hours because Ketch is out of the pocket. So Jason, my internet sucks. Let's end this before it gets horrible, even worse. All right. Jason Sugarmel, I appreciate you. Get out of here, my friend. Let me go ahead and say something real quick. And then about Eric Sells Homes, DFW. If you're looking for a house in the DFW area, but you want to have good internet, go to Eric Sells Homes, DFW. Make sure you check it out. This where I'm at is worse than Spectrum, apparently. Eric Sells Homes, DFW. Man with the master plan. Eric Sells Homes, DFW. We'll be back at noon for the modcast. You guys take care. I'm going to see if I'm going to contact my super host.